Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello, and welcome to the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. We have a great show for you today. We are going to talk about being a boss, hiring people so that they can help you to be an amazing entrepreneur and scale and grow your business and not do all the work anymore and find just the right team for that. And it's not easy, as many of you know. If you're wondering why we're talking about this on the Money and You Show, well, we talk about how to make a living. That's a huge part of your money financial situation. So we're bringing on somebody who is so talented and so entertaining. You're going to love our guest today, and she is going to help you tremendously in that realm of being a better boss and hiring talent. So I'm going to tell you a little something that Entrepreneur Magazine just published, and it was talking about what makes a great boss, and a few things that I found interesting and might surprise you. We'll find out if our guest agrees with these things. But a genuine love of people. Great bosses enjoy their team members. They're personally thrilled when a team member succeeds, and they're gratified to see team members grow in their jobs. Number two, a servant heart. Effective leadership is about serving others, not serving oneself. Great bosses embrace their role to help others succeed, grow, and evolve. And the third one that they talked about was a commitment to their commitments. Great bosses hold people accountable for performance expectations and values standards. And they're firm with team members, but they ensure that promises made are promises kept. Integrity. That's a big part of it, earned every day by demonstrating respectful interactions and delivering to performance expectations. So those are a few things that Entrepreneur Magazine had to say about being a great boss. I'm going to introduce you to somebody that I have the pleasure of knowing, and her name is Talmar Anderson, and her company is Boss Actions. And Boss Actions is the hiring strategy and boss best practices firm that empowers business owners to shift their own role to thriving boss by building kick-ass teams that they can trust to deliver so they can stop doing all the work. As CEO and founder of Boss Actions, Talmar Anderson is on a mission to teach you that it does not have to be so hard to build, lead, and celebrate with your dream team. Powerful, thought-provoking, and to the point, Talmar Anderson, the Boss Muse, has been featured on AppleTV, Roku, and more, and is a sought-after speaker. As the creator of Bossification, the groundbreaking program that delivers step-by-step processes and insights on how to hire, how to manage, and how to step fully into your thriving boss role, Talmar knows how to create dramatic shifts in your perspective on what it means to be the boss of a successfully growing business. Talmar, welcome.
You so much, Michelle. I am thrilled to be here. That was an amazing intro, and there was a whole lot of pictures of me. Wow, how?
Yes, we love that. We love it when we have great pictures of our guests, so thank you. And Talmar, there's so much to talk about. We're not going to get nearly all of it in, but I've been around you a little bit, and I know how much knowledge you have and how well you explain this whole thing. So, I don't know. Do you want to comment on what Entrepreneur Magazine had to say about what makes up a great boss, and then jump in and tell our audience, some of what you have to say?
Absolutely. First of all, I think that it's a great point. The 3 points they brought up were strong, and I do think that there's definitely some foundational pieces in it. But I would tell you that it was probably written from the perspective of bosses, because what I know is that employees value 5 things very specifically from a great boss. And I think that one of the things, they're similar, but employees are really looking for a boss that makes them feel heard, that listens to them, right? That's one, gives them access so they can make sure they're doing their jobs well and that they're actually, delivering what a boss wants. They make sure that they are a great boss, according to employees, is someone who is encouraging. And oftentimes this is that fun mentoring part that entrepreneurs and business owners love about building a business, right? It's when they get to be encouraging and see something in the employee that the employee may not even recognize, right? That real mentor capacity, that's super appreciated. And anytime a boss acknowledges or encourages something in an employee, they carry that with them throughout their careers. That's just 3 of the 5. So I think it's similar, but I suspect that article was written from bosses deciding what bosses are good at.
Yeah, that's so smart. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
No, it's okay. It's a great article, and it's not wrong. It's that's from the side of the fulfillment, right? Yeah. Looking backwards, what do you think you did that made you a great boss? And hopefully that's fed from the idea of speaking to the employees about what made them a great boss. And then they put it in their own boss words, right? I kept my commitments. I said what I was going to do and I did what I was going to say, that kind of thing.
Yeah. How did you want to just talk for a minute about how you got into this? What a little of your background is?
Sure. The joke I always make is I started off bossing around attorneys. I ran law firms for the first 20 years of my career. And no, I'm not an attorney. I just tell them what to do. I was always on the business side of it, right? I managed the marketing, the accounting, the information technology, the human resources, and the process, operations, so that attorneys could go out and be amazing attorneys. And that's where I started. And then when I was a mom of a very young man, and that's a story for another day, but I realized I needed more autonomy. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, I wanted to be where I wanted to be, when I wanted to be. And starting a business and going down the path of discovering that was challenging, something I was not prepared for, like the majority of entrepreneurs. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And I started originally as an operational consultant, did that for 7 years for business owners. And then I realized that they were all asking the same 2 questions, whether I worked with them for an hour or a full year. Everybody wanted to know, how do you find good people? And what do you do if you have to fire them, right? These were the 2 stressors that everybody had in common. And I thought, I can't be inventing this wheel. And it turns out I'm pretty close to inventing the wheel. So so that's wow. Bossification. And it's a step-by-step method that lets people create predictable, repeatable processes that are specific to your company. It's not do it like Talmar does. It's how to look at your own business, know what team's going to be successful, attract them, and then vet them very specifically.
Oh, I love that. So Bossification, it's somewhat of a custom program for your company?
Yes and no. Okay. So it's a program that allows people to apply it to their own company. Okay. So the steps are the same regardless of the client, whether it's, big data, roofing companies, marketing firms. It doesn't matter what the client base is. It lets them go, okay, if I'm going to hire, what am I hiring for? What is success to me, for my market, for my business? And then how do I attract that? And we walk them through everything from writing the employment ads and job descriptions to the interview questions. And then we also rolled in the how do you manage? Because so often people are being taught to be great leaders, but they're not actually being taught how to be a manager. And there's a process to it that lets you get ahead of the drama and the stress.
Yeah, so interesting. That was another piece of the article that I didn't bring up, and it comes up all the time these days. Just the fact that people get promoted based on their technical skills, and yet they have no management skills, and suddenly they're managers. So
exactly. Yeah. I will tell you, that has been a problem for a really, really long time. That's not a new problem, right? That has been a problem for, 20, 30, 50 years. The issue is, as we've become more sophisticated and the employees became more sophisticated, the management, especially the higher ups, were being held more accountable to, hey, just because you know the answer doesn't mean you can talk to me that way. And just because you've done what I've done doesn't mean the way I'm doing it is wrong. And so that management skill, how to set expectations, how to communicate accountability, how to motivate people, in a way that encourages them. As the world got more sophisticated and aware that, as a boss, we could influence these people positively, and actually that benefits our business. Let's get back to the money profitably, because we're hiring less often. We're hiring better people that are more efficient. And so that real management side, I think I would say it was about 20 years ago that the business world became more aware of it. And, just every year they try to get more sophisticated about it. But corporations, they're a little slow to catch on to that. That's where the small business owner has the edge on them. We can really build a team the way we want to build it. And it's just about making sure we communicate it and set the expectations correctly.
Yes, I love that. And I agree with you. Corporate America is going to be slower to take on some of these new ideas. But at the same time, the small business owner can find themselves in places where they're more desperate. And, it's like hiring is of the essence in that moment. And so I can see where there are issues. So if you are a small business owner and you are trying to build this team, for one thing, I'd love to hear just some, basic hiring principles. I know
I
have
rules,
so much
girl.
knowledge.
I'll give you rules. You want some rules? I got it.
Love the rules. And then, which is funny because actually Limit Free Life never really does love rules, but we're going to love them in this moment. We're going to love them about hiring. But also just when do you start building this team? Because do you wait until you are desperate and then you can't actually hire,
the capacity, right, to focus on it.
Yeah.
All the right questions. It's just, I would say a couple of things. First of all, when it comes to hiring, let's be clear. Our team is more than employees, especially for small business owners. Our team is anyone we let influence the success of our business. So that has to include vendors and independent contractors, as well as employees. Now, how we engage them, meaning how we hire them, and how much of a say we have in what they do is, of course, deciding that relationship, whether they're a vendor, an independent contractor, or employee. But a hiring process should be applied to every single one. We need to be clear on what success is. We have to vet the person if they're going to be able to deliver successfully, right? And the company, it doesn't matter, whoever you're bringing to your company. So the first thing I would say is that when to hire is when you can see that there's an area you need help in, and whether help is an extra set of hands, an expertise that you don't have, or it's time to start scaling, which is when we break out pieces and we let different people take on a certain amount of work so that we can bring on more business than we can handle ourselves, right? That's the scaling and the growth ideology. Then these are all different reasons. But the way to get ahead of the overwhelm is to be mindful about the fact that you want to have a business bigger than you, right? As soon as you can get a hold of the idea that, I don't want to just build 2,080 hours a year, and that's my ceiling on money. And if I'm sick, or if I, want to take a vacation, or I want to hang out with my family, that's going to limit my success and my client's success. I mean, there's a lot beyond that. So as soon as you know that it's going to be bigger than you, that's when you'll need to take the time to sit down and go, what is the next step going to look like? How will I be able to next get help? And whether that's a bookkeeper for a lot of people, if it's a virtual assistant, or even an in-person assistant, if it's somebody that's actually going to be in front of your clients and help you get work done, it's different for everyone. So the truth is, there is no one answer, but it is about you learning how to take the time to get clear on what it is you need and what success out of that need is going to look like.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. I love the part about getting clear. I mean, I feel like clarity comes up in every conversation.
It really does, right? If we just say, I want help, well, you know what? Maybe somebody's going to come in here and vacuum, which I would love, by the way. But what I really wanted was somebody to do my SEO. I can't say help. And actually, an even better example, my favorite example, this is one of my rules. So when somebody says, I'm going to hire a VA, a little bit of my time is like, oh, because let's be clear. That's like saying, I'm hungry. Let's go to a restaurant, right? It's that specific. So if I say that and you take me to a Mexican restaurant for Mexican food, and I wanted to go to a Japanese restaurant for Japanese food, I'm angry at you. You did it wrong. You didn't get it right. How dare you? You're fired. But I wasn't clear.
Right.
Not fair, not right, and creating my own chaos. And that's what I'm trying to get people ahead of.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I mean, it's the same thing with money. You have to be very clear, what your goals are, what is actually going on with your money. I mean, there's so much clarity around everything. I work with career professionals who are not entrepreneurs, who are looking for jobs. They're very broad too. And, they're, again, sometimes feeling a little desperate, kind of like, well, I just almost will take anything that fits in this giant box. And that's not clarity either. And, clarity always makes things work better. And
amen. 100%. So here's, say what we want, get what we say, right? Isn't that it?
Yeah.
If we want something very specifically, I want someone to come in and edit all my videos and make sure that there's a nice title page, get them loaded up to all my sites, make sure that they get posted in rotation on our social media, right? Put them into the right folders, share them in the right vehicles. Like, that's clear. Not, I just wish somebody would help me with my videos.
Yeah.
What do I want them to do?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the sticky part then, Michelle, is that everybody's like, yeah, but I don't know anything about videos. What do I want them to do? Right.
Right. Yeah. And I would imagine when you're working with small businesses, you do probably have to help them understand who they need on their team. I feel like I need that a lot. Like, you need help, that there are a bunch of different areas you need help in. And well, how do you prioritize? What do you need first? And then to get that clarity, because sometimes you don't know what you need or who you need or what you don't know. So,
well, will you be surprised that the very first thing we walk everybody through in Bossification is their why for hiring right now, right? There's a lot of reasons, we've already discussed that. There's so many reasons that you could need to hire that you, boss, have to tell me, why are we hiring? Are we hiring for cash flow? Well, then we're going to look to hire a position that will help us bring cash in faster. So is that a bookkeeping invoicing issue? Is that a business development sales issue, right? That's why there can't be one answer. It really is dependent upon you. And so learning how to really take the time, and totally, if I can go off the mark for a second, sure. Michelle, something that you keep talking about, how we keep looking for clarity. I think the biggest, hardest thing, and I know I struggle with it, is giving ourselves permission to just stop to think. Right? The overwhelm is because we book ourselves, book, right? Yep. And I'm sure you see this all the time. And we're not taking the space to think. This hour, I'm going to think about my money and investing. This hour, I'm going to think about hiring an assistant. This hour, I'm going to think about hiring for my home life. Because if you're a successful business owner, you're going to be hiring for your house, I promise. For your house, for your family, that's all still hiring. Yeah. But we're not being, to heck with clarity, we're not giving ourselves the space to plan. And if we don't plan for success, that's planning to fail, right? Isn't that what they say?
Yeah, that's what they say. And they say it for a reason. Yeah, I know. True. And, it's overwhelming to think about. And I love that you can help people with that, because people do need help. Because what happens is you go into kind of the analysis paralysis and you do nothing for a long time, and because you can't figure out what to do. So I think your role is so crucial to have somebody come in and help you design this plan, help you figure out, how to make it happen. Because even if you create the plan, then there's still the whole dilemma of, okay, now I have to hire and I don't really know how. And so
absolutely,
there's a lot to it. So I understand business owners, especially people who are not actually business people. I mean, there's so many of them out there that the lawyers, they get their law degree and then they're expected to be entrepreneurs and hire and train teams, and nobody's ever taught them anything about that. Same with doctors and dentists.
Here's a big secret for your audience. MBA people don't know how to hire. And I mean that with kindness. There's some MBA organizational structures. I'm sure they would happily go to the mat with me. I get it. But the predominant amount of people who are going in to study business are still not being taught the process of how to hire for themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Theoretical and concepts, and there might be a couple of rules. Even the SBA, right? If you go to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, to learn how to hire, they're going to go, here's a template of an employment ad or a job description. But what they're not taking the time to do is teach people that it starts 2 full steps before you write that employment ad. Yeah. You're going to attract what do you want, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's very frustrating, and I feel just terrible that it's not easier and that it's taken till boss actions for people to have someone who can take a step-by-step process and let them really go. What do I want? What's that look like? And what is that person bringing to me and my company so that I can attract it in an employment ad and then vet them through my vetting process, really go in and ask them the questions to make me believe that I have a reasonable expectation that they can actually do the job.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Everything you brought up, I'd like to go back to. But so smart. And I love what you said about the MBA. I've had a lot of clients actually who were like, maybe I need to go back to MBA school to learn this or that. And I have an MBA. It's ancient, but I have one. And I know the curriculum's all changed and everything else, but I still think, no, that's not going to give you what you need. They're not going to talk to you about the kinds of things that you're talking about.
Well, and they're certainly valuable, especially depending industry specific. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is if you're going to learn how to run a business, that's not the path, right? There are other ways you need to get some skills and process inside your business if you're going to have a chance at success. And education, I'm not bagging it. Heck, that's what I do. I educate people. I like education. But again, it's the clarity. What are we trying to go to school for? What are we buying this course for? What are we doing this program for? What is it going to bring into me or my business so that we can be more successful? And sometimes, we fall in like with people, which is why we hire them, right? Yeah. Oh, he was so nice. He reminded me of somebody, and I just know he's going to try really, really hard, which, by the way, is not a reason to hire somebody. Trying means they're probably not going to get the job done. I'm just putting that out there. So not always, but predominantly, right? Yeah. So it's just a lot to consider. Education, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I just don't want people to think that it's my point is you have permission to not know how to hire. It's literally the last thing people teach you. And you have to be part of larger masterminds, $25, $50, $100,000 masterminds. And then they bring in an organizational structure person to really help you build it with you, not necessarily even teaching you what it is that you're doing that's specific so that you can continue to repeat it and build a team. Because if you're successful, you're going to always need to be bringing on new team members, whether it's a coach or even a mastermind, like I alluded to that ideology, or if it's your advisors or it's the people in your business, you're going to need to always be hiring. And so it's just, for me, it's a fundamental principle. I just want to get out there as quick as I can.
Yeah. It's so good. 2 things that I hear a lot. One, from successful people, I've tried hiring people. I do everything. I do it so well. And I try hiring people. It's always a disappointment. It never works as well as me doing it. And so I just can't build this team. I've tried. That's one thing that I hear a lot.
So to that point, there's 2 things I would ask. One, if we've tried, were we clear on what a successful person was going to do? So sometimes a mismatch hire is, I thought I needed help with my bookkeeping, but what I really needed help with was marketing. And so if we hired an assistant, poor assistants, God love you people. People are hiring badly and blaming you. But if I hired a bookkeeping assistant, but then we went into the process as I get it, because small business, we're always changing, we're always growing, it's a flow, right? Sometimes you need more employees, sometimes you need more independent contractors. It's going to change. So once we get in, some mismatch hires are just I thought we needed bookkeeping. What we really need is marketing. Of course, you're not successful at it because you're a bookkeeping assistant, not a marketing assistant. And so I'm sorry, this isn't working, right? Whether the boss has the time and the awareness to see that they just mishired about that, which happens a good amount, that they'll be like, oh, I just hired the wrong person, but now I feel bad because I like them. But your business can't grow and you can't contribute and be impactful if you don't have the right people. So you do have to let them go, boss. That's a mismatch that happens a lot. But the other one, the delegation, the control, nobody will do it as well as me. It's a big fat lie, people. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. Somebody can do it as well or better. And the thing about it is you can't wait to delegate. The minute you find that person, you're like, oh my gosh, wait till you meet Sarah. She is going to rock your world. I can't wait to sign you on new client and hand you off to this person who is amazing. So if you don't have that person, it's because you don't trust them, because they're not the right person. And we have to deal with that sooner than later. And that's the management side of bossification.
Yeah. Excellent. And then there are the people who manage a team, maybe even a relatively large team, small business owner, and they're having a terrible time keeping track of what everybody's doing. So they feel a little bit lost.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I work with some people like that, and they're good at. I mean, they were good at hiring actually, and they were good at delegating, but now they're spending a lot of time wondering what people are doing and are they caught up and trying to implement, whatever software they need to make sure everybody's reporting up. And so anyway, that's my other thing that I hear a lot.
So automation is great and it's a tool, but I think that the piece that's missing a lot of times when companies are scaling and growing is something called span of capacity. So each person in your company should have a finite number of people that they manage. Now, this will be industry specific, and of course it will be business specific, but traditionally I like to base this on risk management best practices, right? Like emergency services. You're not allowed to have more than 7 people report to you. Now, I'm nice to small business. I will let them have as many as 10 because consider that we've got a bookkeeper and an attorney that while we need to keep tabs on them, we probably don't talk to them as much as, say, our customer service person or, somebody that's working on the deliverable side for a client. So that's something to keep in mind. When you go bigger, it is critical that you start to build leadership that also has a limit to how many people can report to them. And this is how we get into that corporation idea, right? People call it bureaucracy. Oh, they're just trying to put some layers in there to, deflect or to be able to blame somebody else. No, it's because a good boss knows you are giving time and attention to your team. I mean, this is a fundamental process. I don't know if you saw it go across the screen, but our whole mission is to help business owners understand that a boss provides the tools, the team builds success. And as you create leadership and more layers of bosses within your company, they also need to be all about their team and so on and so forth. So we need to make sure that everyone, to your original point with the expertise getting promoted, right, is make sure that they have the capacity to understand how to manage, how to be in front of people, how to be accessible. Are they able to do that? There's plenty of bosses that hide and do the body language with their arms crossed and they're like, yeah, what? I'm busy. And they reschedule on their team. And a great boss in any level is somebody that's all about making themselves accessible and in front of their team. And a lot of our business owners have never been taught how to do that, how to set boundaries so that they're not doing it too much, but also to be encouraging. And then that secondary piece of how do I hold them accountable? What if they're not doing the job? I can give them all the tools, but if they're not stepping up, that's my issue.
Oh my gosh, Talmar, this is so good. And it brings up so many new questions, but I love that. And I love the boundaries comment because I do know people who are like, well, if I make myself too accessible, I will never get any of my work done. I'll just be, fielding questions all day long. And that could happen. So what you're talking about is so important. And it's doable.
My dog's literally just busted in. I'm
Your
so
dog is
sorry.
beautiful. We have many dogs that show up on the Money and You show. So
sorry about that, y'all.
I'm also wondering, when you have maybe more than one boss, this actually just recently came up with a client, and it's a partnership arrangement. And
business partners.
One of them is has paid more attention to sort of the art of being a boss, and the other, maybe they're not being this similar bosses or handling that, their employees in similar ways. And I don't know. Would you suggest navigating something like that?
Well, so the issue is, you have to be very clear on workflows and communication. So if you have two business owners, who reports to whom? Who's the decider? Who's the manager, right? And the best way to do that is to either especially if you have somebody that's not strong in their management or people skills. Some experts are great, some visionaries are great, but they're just not the people that have the capacity to motivate, encourage, and hold accountable even. That can be the piece, right? So you can create a workflow that allows the person that's great with their interaction and their humans be the person that brings all the information to the team and shares it downward. So we could isolate the one boss, the business owner that's not great at the management skills, or we can develop them. You say, hey, you need to meet Talmar Anderson and go to her Boss Actions VIP Boss Days.
Yes.
I'm just saying that's one of the things you could do.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about that more in just a minute.
Because, I mean, being saucy. But the point is they can develop those skills, right?
Right.
The reason the majority of people who say, I don't like people skills, or I don't want to be around, I don't want to hire, like I never want to be a boss. It's because they either had a boss that really forced them into a management situation that was not ideal, and they felt uncomfortable and never want to feel that way again. But now you're the business owner, which is why I work with them, because they're the ones that are setting the tone for what the team's going to look like. They're the ones that are deciding exactly how success is going to be done. Right. So it can be learned, but I think that they just are so stuck in their past experiences of being forced to manage in a world where it wasn't their rules, that they can't imagine taking on the responsibility of being that bad guy. But being a manager is not about being a bad guy.
Right.
By the time you hold somebody accountable, you've had the right conversations. If you're following the system, you've had the conversations that literally no one is surprised. You call them into your office and you say, you know what? We talked about this. You said this. It didn't happen. So you know what our next step is. And it can be that simple.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds simple. Hard to do, but
it's not always easy. I'm not going to promise that it's fun, but
right.
It doesn't have to be this big, boulder that you carry around for a long time, suffering through underperformers and making yourself sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love earlier when you said to use the same hiring process with, people who aren't full-time hires, whether that's a VA
part-time, independent contractors, vendors. Absolutely.
Because as a person who's used a lot of VAs or hired a lot of VAs, I can say I have probably not done that. And so that's excellent advice. And I also want to ask you one question about that. When you have a team like that, in some ways you tend to sort of treat them differently in terms of team meetings and just communication and everything too. They're, at least the way I've done it, and I know this is a mistake I've made, so I'll be clear about that. But I was more assigning tasks to these kind of people who were more on the periphery and not having a cohesive kind of team where people knew what other team members were doing. I'd just love for you to comment on the best way to kind of handle that.
Well, so there's a couple of things. So, of course, we are limited in what we can hold accountable for, at least within the United States, right? With regard to our independent contractors and with regard to our vendors. However, there are no rules with how often you can meet with them and ask for progress. You can put that into your independent contractor. You have to do an independent contractor agreement and scopes of work, right? That's the difference between ICs and employees, right? Employees, we get to tell them exactly what we want, when we want, and how we want. It's beautiful. Don't be afraid of employees, people. It's much, much better. Don't be afraid. If you're afraid, let's have a conversation, because employees are really where you're building your business. Now, independent contractors, you can still require that you may have to pay them, but it's worth it every time. You can have weekly meetings. You can have them come to the team meetings. You can meet with your vendors on a monthly basis, on a bi-monthly basis. Depends on what you've got going on. But that's when you need to be clearly saying, am I getting what I need? these are the questions I have for you. And what do you need from me to make sure I'm getting the results that I expect from you? Right. So that the management side is the same, regardless of the engagement with which you've hired somebody. Oh, sorry. Gosh, I'm knocking you all around. But it's really about understanding that I want these results. This is what I'm looking for. And what do you guys need from me to get those results? Now, we can only manage to results with an independent contractor or a vendor. And then with employees, we can manage to, cultural fit. That could be done for independent contractor too. Again, that's complicated, but with performance of very specifically, did they show up on time? Are they wearing the company colors? All that stuff we can manage in an employee. In an independent contractor would have to be written out in the agreement, and then each scope of work would have to have any specifics. But once we've set what success is for each one of those roles, vendor, independent contractor, or employee, we should be in front of them all the time, making sure they're giving us what we want in the way that we want, and then correcting any behaviors or results that are not consistent with where we want to go with that relationship.
Yeah, thank you.
That's the broadest way I can explain that.
No, that's great. And, the hiring process is a lot more than, like you say, figuring out the job description and doing the hiring, because then they come on board and there's onboarding and there's training and there's all kinds of things. And so
Absolutely.
You help people figure that piece out too, because without that, you're
100%.
missing a lot of what sets somebody up for success, I believe.
I agree with you 100%. One of my, we talked about rules and I haven't given hardly any of them yet.
My gosh, give us some rules before we close up here.
So when it comes to onboarding, I nothing gets me hotter under the collar than a boss who is frustrated that the first week a new employee couldn't even clear off their own desk. How dare you? You invited them to come work for you. You set the date they were coming. You expected them. How dare you not set up some kind of welcome and give them the tools they need to be successful? I mean, it is in every business owner's best interest to not start any engagement until such a time as you can get everything they need from you ready and set up. So if that's emails, computers, a place to sit, a Zoom account, a nice handy dandy mug, whatever that is, that's going to make them feel welcomed and expected. You hired them. You don't get to be unprepared for them when they show up.
I love that. I love that. And I'm thinking about the people that I've worked with who've gotten jobs and then have told me, well, I was supposed to be, I'll catch up with them a couple months later. Well, they were supposed to train me, but I don't really get training. There's somebody that I can bother when I have questions, but, or I still really don't know what I'm doing and I'm trying really hard to do the best job I can, but nobody's really given me great, instructions or anything. So I love that you're saying that.
Okay, here comes another rule. Or it's more of an insight. I don't think it's a rule, but let us be clear. An open door policy is meaningless if you're not having regular one-on-one meetings. Let me explain. If you go, I don't know what they're talking about. I have an open door policy. They never come and ask me for help. So let's be clear. You would like your employee to come to the boss who they're always worried about impressing, who they're trying to give their very best to. You want me to come into the boss, stop them in the middle of something, admit I don't know something, ask them to help me solve that something, and maybe tell me how to learn to do it better. But you want me to just interrupt your day and tell you about that. And that's something that's going to be easy for me to walk in and do? Absolutely not. One-on-one meetings allow us to give them a consistent place to ask questions and come and understand what you want from them. So if we start to cultivate the relationship through those consistent meetings and really make those about the employee and in the team, then the relationship is there where they know, oh, I really can bring things to her. She helps me with it. So when I approach her and say, hey, I have this problem, it's less stressful for me because I've seen them over and over again develop this relationship with me where I didn't get fired every time I asked a question.
Right.
And so I think people underestimate how scary it is to take advantage of an open door policy.
Oh, that's fabulous. So good. I love that you're still taking the perspective of the employee too, and you're able to see both sides because it's super
It's really important. If you're going to be a great boss, you have to be, and that's, the funny thing about that is so many business owners went into being a business owner. Those entrepreneurs are driven on building a culture that is better than what they've experienced of never being that boss, which honestly, a lot of my clients, they kind of went the other way. They're like, I've tried to be as nice as I can, but I really just need some results now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh, Talmar, this is so good. I could talk to you all day long, and I'm sure people are dying to hear more at this point. So can you tell people how they can connect with you and learn more from you? This is such good stuff. And for the people listening who are thinking, this is overwhelming, this is a lot, I have too much work to do to even think about this. Can you just give them a quick summation of what they could expect if they do stop, think, take the time, and implement this kind of a thing?
Absolutely. So the first thing is if you, boss, think you are too busy, let's talk. You will only get busier from here. So if you're already feeling overwhelmed and like you can't imagine learning one more thing, let's consider the idea that if you develop your own skills for hiring and attracting a kick-ass team, that's the only way you get space on your calendar besides closing your business doors. The only way. Because you either lose business and now all of a sudden have time, or you hire, you get more profit, which I know Michelle would love to talk more about. You can be more profitable because you've got more team. And that's how you actually can get money and space on your calendar. It's the only way outside of closing your doors that you can create space for yourself to think, to write a book, to go on vacation with your phone off, right? These are all the things that developing your own skills for hiring and managing a team will really let you grow to successfully. I mean, that's what it's about, right? And doing it with a team that you enjoy is all about learning how to identify what success is for you specifically.
Yeah, love that so much. And of course, profitability. I do love that. And I know there are people out there saying, well, that doesn't make sense because if I have all these additional salaries on my payroll, then I am going to be less profitable. So that's a conversation to have with Talmar or me. And definitely something to talk about because that is a mindset or a thought or belief that you may need to understand differently.
100%. And it might be an education piece, right? Teaching people how to create workflows and different compensation models that don't require somebody to do it exactly the way you're doing it. So, yeah.
Well, Talmar, we've gone past our time here. So can you tell people how they can connect with you? And I'll be telling people to connect with you because you are really a powerful force in the small business world, and people need you. And I hope that they will talk to you and get the help to grow and build this dream team, which makes everything not only more profitable, but more fun when you have a great team. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you for having me, Michelle. Anyone can find us at bossactions.com. They could go to zoomwithtalmar.com. They can set up an appointment to speak with me, see what else is going on with us. I would love the opportunity to speak with anyone that has questions. It doesn't have to be so hard. And it's a lot of fun to build, lead, and celebrate with a kick-ass team.
Thank you, Talmar. You are fabulous. And thank you so much for spending time with us here today. And I really definitely, listeners, please connect with Talmar. She is great, and you will be so happy you did. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being here today on the Money and You Show. We love to have you here. Please subscribe. Leave us a review if you like the show. That helps us keep going. And contact Talmar, and you can find us at ubngo.com on Monday nights at 7. And then you can find us at least by the next day on all the podcast platforms, the Limit Free Life YouTube channel, Limit Free Life Facebook page. You won't have trouble finding us. And so thank you again for being here. Love your questions. You can email me at michelle@limitfreelife.com if you have ideas or questions, or even questions for the guests that you see, and I can pass those on. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week.